Hi, my name is Kachung Wong. I serve as one of the elders here at Lincroft Bible Church. And I just want to share with you my testimony. Uh, Being poor immigrants in this country at an early age, um, I fully believed that only way that I was going to be successful in this life and achieve the American dream was to work hard and do well in school. And nothing was more important than that. You know, my my whole identity, self worth, was really wrapped around my academic achievements. So I put my head down and I worked hard and did well in school and I went to a decent college. And really, at that point, I really thought I had it made. But at graduation, I only had one job offer, and that was from a shipbuilding company in Virginia. And I'm going to tell you that probably was the one of the most disappointing moments in my life, given the fact that I worked so hard. Um, but I needed a job, so I did what was necessary. I took the job, I packed my bags, and I went down to Virginia in 1987. But looking back, it was really God's grace that led me there. Unbeknownst to me, the next 3 years that I spent in Virginia is the most transformative years of my life. After a few months, I was working in a company. A fellow coworker, Dan, came up to me and invited me to a Bible study, in his Chinese church. I was like totally surprised. I wasn't surprised that he invited me to a Bible study. I was surprised that there was enough Chinese people living in Virginia to actually make up a church. So of course I went with him, and I started to get connected with him. I started going to Bible study. And the night I, gave my life to Jesus, I still remember even now, it's almost like it was yesterday. It was after one of the Bible studies. I had a question about God's fairness. In my heart, I just complained to God about what's fair in life, because to me, it didn't seem fair that God would only save those who believe in Jesus. And I actually told the person who was leading that Bible study that there are good people who don't believe in Jesus, or they're not getting to heaven. For example, my mother, I was telling her, and it just didn't seem fair that God wouldn't allow my mom to get into heaven because she didn't believe in Jesus. Uh, and she's and here's what she said to me. She said, "Kachong, there are actually people in the Bible that complain about God's fairness as well." And so she points to me to Habakkuk chapter 1. It's funny, as I look back now, I wonder, why she didn't point me to John 3:6 or Ephesians 2:8, But God had a plan. And she said that if you read through Habakkuk 1, you could see how Habakkuk, a prophet of God, was complaining about God's fairness. That made me really think. So that night after I left the Bible study, I couldn't sleep that night at all. I was really complaining to God all night, in a sense about what's fair and what's not fair. Um, and uh, and I was almost like you say I'd be wrestling with God. I think God spoke that night to me. He said, "Kachong, all your life, right? You know, you believe in working hard, right?" I said, "Yeah." Right, and you believe in getting good grades, right? And getting into a good school, right? I said, "Yeah, of course." And you wanted to get a good job, right? I said, "Yeah, of course." And so he said, the guy was saying, you accepted the standards, the world standards for success. I said, "Sure, okay." Then he asked me, then why don't you accept my standard for who gets into heaven? I was like, I thought about that, and that hit me like a 10-ton brick, because that night I think I just God made me realize that all my life, I accepted everyone's standard for what is successful, what's good, but I never really accepted God's standard. And I was humbled that evening to a point where I realized that I was complaining. It wasn't God that was unfair. It was me. And so God helped me to see the sin in my life. And as a result of that, that night I gave my life over to Jesus. I accepted him as my Savior and my Lord. And I can tell you, things changed from that point on. I think that's the evening I was born again. And I just had a love for Christ. And I wanted to follow him. I wanted to model my life after Christ. It's not that I was always successful in that, but I knew that Jesus was my Lord and my Savior, and so I continued to have fellowship with the church. I began to serve. God taught me so many things through those next 3 years, and also even afterwards when I moved back up to New York, and I could honestly say that. My life has never been the same, in a sense. And following Christ is, to me, the greatest thing, the greatest, I guess, amazing aspect of God's grace is to know that he came after me and he loved me first.